So today we are talking about waterfront real estate. We're talking everything. We're talking the myths, how to find deals, analyze deals, what's the state of the real estate market amidst all the doom and gloom headlines about cottage markets and what's happening in Canada. I can tell you we do a ton of waterfront real estate in the Grand Bend area, also down on Lake Erie. And I got Stefan coming on talking. He's a real estate agent. He's a developer. He's somebody who's actually in the business trading. But first, before we get into all the details, the myths, all that fun stuff, why don't you give people a bit of your background? How did you even end up in real estate and waterfront development?
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to chat here about, an exciting market or, exciting in my eyes and, a lot of other people's for sure. So I actually have been in the business now approaching 4 years, the end of this July. So, not very long in, comparison to some of my colleagues, but it's been a very quick learning curve the last few years. Obviously the COVID market was pretty crazy, but prior to that, I've kind of been in sales my whole life. So my father had a professional car racing team where I was sort of responsible for sponsorship and things like that. Ended up behind the wheel for a couple of years with very, very moderate and minimal success.
From your perspective, from the young guns, I'm sure they looked up at you. You were racing, right? You were doing the thing, which is cool.
Yeah, it was lots of fun, unique opportunity for my dad and I to really do something cool together, get to do lots of travel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just one of those things where it was really, really expensive. I had to, focus on having a career and all of that. So from there, ended up getting into the cannabis industry, which for better or worse was a good opportunity, but got out of that and then went full bore into real estate. So the last 4 years been primarily specializing up in Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, and Muskoka. I'm a waterfront resident myself, so I just went through a build process of a waterfront home. And then now been getting more and more into the development side. So currently developing 96 acres on the Muskoka River. Sadly, only into 8 lots, but I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
And loving it. Get to work with really cool people. Get to see, really unique properties all the time. Like nothing is the same as the other for the most part.
Yeah.
So unique architecture, unique views. Some days I'm on 4 or 5 different lakes. So it's lots of fun.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, unique properties is something that I just fell into. I've sold more log homes than I probably care to remember in my time. And they do take a certain aptitude and understanding and learning, right? So like you're talking about the deal that you found, right? The 96 acres. Let's talk about that first.
Yeah.
Hey, how'd you find that deal? Like, how did you come across it before you even decided to purchase it?
So I work with, people obviously looking for waterfront homes and cottages and even vacant lots for the purpose of building their dream home on. But I had basically wanted to identify an opportunity for myself. Obviously being in the business, we have lots of exposure to deals, good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
And wanted to find one for myself. So I work with a great planning consultant named Tom DeBoer out of the Lindsay area. He assists myself and my clients with all of our due diligence, all of our homework, and just making sure that things actually work prior to us moving forward. So identified a few properties, sent them over to him basically to, do a high level,
what can I do with this conversation, right?
Exactly. Like, do we have enough frontage here? Do we have enough acreages or enough acres? All that type of stuff. And basically from there, he's like, this one is one that I think you should jump on. The previous owner, it wasn't my listing or anything, but the previous owner wasn't wanting to spend any money to figure out what he had. So through that process, we tied it up for 120 days, conditional on due diligence, which was great. Had lots of time to really go through and check all the boxes, which is important. I mean, it was $800,000, so not a small sum of money, not the largest either. But we got our pre-consultation done. We knew what we needed to have completed to get this thing to the finish line. And I was able to make an educated decision on whether or not I actually wanted to buy it. So, the same process that I went through is something that we do for the clients that we work with. Again, just to make sure that everything is feasible and, there's a finish line.
Yeah. And I think the one thing I noticed in the very beginning when you answered the question was you contacted a great planner. I think a lot of people think they need to learn development themselves top to bottom. And I think partnerships are the way to go, both, on the contracting side, on the builder side, on the planning side, and on the real estate agent side. One of the reasons why I have you on this show is just the relationship we've built over the years. Is if I've got people in your area, rather than me running up there and selling a property or you come into my area, a lot of times you want to partner with people that have a level of expertise or leverage, be it relationships or knowledge in a field that you don't have, which was your planner, it sounds like, right?
Exactly. And like, as much as we are educated and you do learn this stuff through the process, whether it's my own money or my clients, I want to have 100% certainty that this is actually something that can be done.
Yeah.
I'm not a planner. I'm not an engineer. Yes, I know for the most part what to look for, but when it comes down to, signing that check and putting a significant sum of money on the line, you can't leave it up for room for interpretation. And sadly, I've seen a few realtors do that. And,
Mhm.
I'll leave it at that. But you just got to protect yourself and protect the clients.
Yeah, I've seen investors do the same thing, especially now in terms of where a lot of promissory note deals and a lot of things that happened over COVID where you could do no wrong because the prices were just ripping. When you're analyzing a deal, there's risk and reward outside of just the passive appreciation of the marketplace, right? And land
Totally.
development, especially waterfront land development, the value add is creating the opportunity. It looks like you broke it into 8 lots, which sounds fantastic. How how confident were you in how much density you were going to get when you were doing the deal or when you had to pull the trigger on making it firm?
So we knew right out of the gate that we were fairly limited in terms of density,
Yeah.
sadly. The nice thing is they are estate size lots, the ones that are on the water, the smallest water frontage is 393 feet, which is
Oh,
well
wow.
above
Okay.
average.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, my largest is nearly 10 acres and over 700 feet of frontage. So
Jeez.
it's really nice in that
Yeah.
sense, but that only goes so far. So would I have preferred higher density? Absolutely. But still, from the early stages, I knew that this thing was, going to pencil and, we had
Yeah.
a pretty clear path to completion. So fortunately it's worked out. I've been delayed for about a year now, thanks to some engineers not being thorough with what they do. So
Yeah.
that's been a bit of a frustrating part of the process. And, you know, it's my first deal. So like I said earlier, I just built a house and I don't have a construction background. So managing my own site, managing my trades, there was hurdles that came with that, things that I would make mistakes on. But even with the land development process, there's been stuff that, this hasn't been cupcakes and gumdrops the whole time. There's been some issues, there's been delays. It's cost me a lot of money to go through these delays, but I'm still confident moving forward that it's going to pencil. I just sold one of the lots the other day.
Yeah.
And then B, I need to have this exposure to this process so that I can better guide my clients.
Yep.
Still going to defer to the planner, still going to defer to the lawyer when I have to, but I can actually speak to the real world scenario here.
Yeah, I actually have a client doing a construction project and he was asking me for advice on it. And I gave him some great contacts. I'm like, this is what the process will look like for build out. But understand you're dealing with human beings and like do your own due diligence. And you need to be on these people because especially when you're dealing with contractors, tradespeople, people in different fields, engineers, architects, planners, like they're overwhelmed sometimes. You don't know what's going on the back end. And it can feel good sometimes to send somebody a file and assume they're just going to do all the heavy lifting for you and just kind of stick your head in the sand. But also I've made mistakes in the past too, where I come out of it and I'm like, man, I should have been in touch with this person and digging in a little bit deeper into what they were actually doing. And that would have saved me time or money, but that's not a negative thing. I think one of the best things that comes out of it is the education you probably got through the process.
Totally.
I mean, it's an MBA level in terms of land development construction, right?
Yeah, no, the experience is invaluable for sure. Like it's really, really something that I'm, as frustrating as it's been going through the delays, it's something that I'm grateful for. I can advise clients, on the process again, and then B, just managing expectations, which, that's a huge part of this business is managing people's expectations, um, you know, hand holding them through this, making sure that they know that, things are going to go according to plan. Just sometimes we have to weave a little bit to navigate that.
Yeah, for sure. So you did the deal. You had a 120-day due diligence period, so 4 months for people that are watching this. In terms of hitting your markers and timelines, like were you able to deal with it within the first 120 days? Did you have to extend conditions? What was that like dealing with the other party? And was it listed? Was it on MLS?
Yeah, so the property was listed. I think it was like 60 or 70 days listed at the time that I had made an offer on it. And again, I had done a little bit of homework for a few weeks prior to that, just making sure it was something I wanted to pursue prior to
Sure.
offering. Tied it up for 120 days, didn't actually get the full 120. So there was an escape clause in there, which, as you know, obviously gives the seller another opportunity for another offer to come in. And then I had basically 72 hours to either move forward or walk away.
Yeah.
So I tied it up. We were like near day 100. By that point, we'd already had our pre-consultation with Muskoka. Again, knew the plan moving forward. So I started shopping it out to developers. I wasn't looking 100% whether or not I wanted to see it all the way through to completion or identify the opportunity and flip the paper. So started off by trying to flip the contract and, see if I could identify a developer that wanted to build it. From there, I had some encouraging conversations. But the funny one was, so I was working with a developer, getting him all this information, providing him with everything he needed to make an educated decision, just as if he was my own buyer. And they come back to me, they tell me, oh, it's too small scale for us. There's not enough meat on the bones. All right, no problem. Thanks for your interest. All the best. And then later that day, I get a call from the listing agent saying, hey, we have another offer on the property.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
they tried to get that one out from underneath me, which was, at the time, I was definitely like, it puts a chip on your shoulder a little bit.
For sure. Yeah.
That just showed me, again, being somebody who doesn't have all the experience in doing this just yet, but people with a lot more money, a lot more experience than I do, they're wanting to take this out from underneath me. So that just sort of solidified to me that this was an opportunity that was worth pursuing, and got a little bit of my Greek temper out and decided to move forward.
Well, sometimes that's what it takes, right? I can tell you, like, every major growth I've had in business has come from somebody pushing me into a corner. And it's the Hulk effect, right? The more shots they take at me, the stronger I've gotten over time. So I thank my enemies probably more than anybody that's helped me get to where I am today. And then the other piece of that is it was listed on MLS for 60 days plus. Man, people think there's no deals on MLS, and I laugh because I'm like, okay, if you're looking for a cash flowing deal, sure, there's not going to be anything on MLS, especially with interest rates. But every deal we've ever found that's been successful, or the unicorn people chase, is a deal that was created by the investor, and it was often overlooked. Would you agree that's the case, that there's quite a lot out there?
Totally. Like, there's, in any market, there's opportunities. You obviously just need to be willing to work hard to identify and, find them. So I definitely agree. There's lots of opportunities out there on MLS. Obviously, there's other channels and off-market opportunities that are out there. But there was one the other day that I'm aware of that one of my clients has moved forward on. It was a house listed in a regular little small town, 400 feet of frontage along a main road in town. The seller and listing agent, at no fault of the listing agent themselves, but they had no idea that you could actually sever off 4 in-town lots off of this property that they're only listing for like $500,000.
Wow.
So one of my investors is actually jumped on it, and they've identified, the opportunity here. And again, that was just a plain deal on realtor.ca, but you have to know what you're looking for too.
And I think who you hire matters, right? I think people look at agents like we're potatoes or chairs, and they just compare us to each other. And who's going to do it for the cheapest? You don't realize how expensive it can be to hire an amateur when they have a property like that in their hands that could be worth 5 times that. Actually, case point, I had a land deal where farmland with a house on it was worth, call it X dollars. I got an offer out of the gate, 200 over that from a developer, and I could have had them take the offer immediately. I'm like, no, there's something else here. We started digging into it, and then we looked at the official plan and where things were going. And if it could be redeveloped, it could be worth 4 times that. Within a month, we got an offer 750 over that offer, and we're still going through the process, helping them with the planning side of things. Now we're at the stage where it's like, okay, if you guys want to spend the money to make it developable or turn it into lots, there's your upside. But do you want to go through that risk and chaos? But even taking that extra 60 days would netting them already $1 million, let alone, if we expose it to the market. So I think, to your point, Stefan, understanding what you're selling as an agent is so important. And as a consumer, understanding the competence of who you're hiring is also super important, right?
Totally. Like, my biggest thing, and I'm not trying to pump my own tires because there's plenty enough realtors that do that, but my biggest strength, honestly, aside from the fact that I'm honest and here to work with people and make myself available, it's my network. Like, I have a great planning consultant. I have an incredible mortgage broker that I work with. Like, she's yet to let me down, and I've handed her some doozies. And my lawyer, I've got a really, really great group of people that we all work together. And at the end of the day, you have the same common goal to serve the client well. I can get agreements of purchase and sale written up and accepted as much as I want, but if the money's not there, well, it's just a waste of time and exercise for everybody. So having that roster of people that you can really rely on, and that they care about the client as much as and the deal as much as you do, it's huge. And with going back, just, you know, the opportunities that are out there, like they're not difficult to find. Again, it just comes down to knowing what you're looking for, being patient with it. Obviously, like you don't want to be the first to jump on something if the facts aren't in front of you. But, you know, sometimes you have to do a little bit of digging. And even on my own listings, like if I'm about to sell a vacant piece of land, I have Tom and his staff do a report that I can provide with the listing, because, you know, whether somebody's looking to spend $100,000 or $10 million on a piece of property, we aren't like, they may not have that exposure to the planning side. They may just be a capital person. So you really need to paint a picture and spoon feed people with information in order just to keep things efficient, maximize value, and just, you know, get the job done.
Yeah. And the relationship piece is super important. I think you're very well known for that. I mean, I felt like I watched this project over the last, year plus with you, just by, you know, you sharing the story online, and you're not scared. Like so many people are scared to share with their community and their network the things that they're working on. But I think it also humanizes you, and it brings interest to the project, obviously, which you're going to be selling. You know, what's that like, or what has your experience been like building your network beyond just the people you're working with behind closed doors?
You know, since I started, it's been, again, like I got into it right as the COVID market was kind of kicking off. So there was a weird little period where nobody really knew what was going to go on. Oh, you know, these prices can't continue to go up. And then lo and behold, we saw massive growth, you know, beyond that point. So for me, a lot of my business is referral based. I work with lots of agents out of the city, some from other countries and provinces that have clients up this way they represent. So a lot of my business has been referral based, you know, working some Facebook groups where it's either realtors and mortgage brokers, or even just, you know, and groups where it's the end consumer. You know, there's plenty of Ontario cottage groups where people are asking questions. And the thing with me, and back to what you said earlier, is like I share on my page, you know, what I'm doing, what I enjoy, what my clients enjoy, and what we're up to, versus, you know, hey, never too busy for your referrals, or like,
Yeah, the
there's
sell that people just turn off, right?
yeah, you know, obviously my job is to sell. Like that's how my clients get into what they want to get into, and that's how I pay my bills. But for me, it's not a matter of, if I do my job and I educate the consumer and I'm honest with people, it's not a matter of if they buy with me, it's when we find the right properties. So I'm very laid back in the sense of, you know, educate first, sell second. That's kind of my thing that I like to say. So aside from that, it's just been, you know, again, I post what I like, I post what I'm doing, you know, different views on different lakes, and people gravitate towards that. And especially the last few years where we were confined within the province or within the country, and people were starting to explore cottaging for the first time. I mean, my parents own a resort up in Haliburton, and we have a very diverse mix of clients. But through the pandemic, the thing that I realized was we were seeing cultures that I don't always see cottaging, getting into it, enjoying the experience, enjoying the beautiful, you know, surroundings and the nature. And that was nice to see. I think we've introduced over the last few years a new class of cottagers and a new demographic to the cottage space. And that can only be good.
Yeah, it's people don't realize what we have, and I always joke with our friends south of the border in Florida, and we talk about the sunbirds that go down there. I'm like, well, the snowbirds that go from Canada down there during the winter, and I called Muskoka the sunbird state. I said,
Exactly.
all you people, because people don't realize, like Beckham, Spielberg, you start listing the people that hide out in the Muskokas. I'm like, well, it's fresh water. There's no sharks or jellyfish that are going to kill you. It's absolutely spectacular. And it's fun because when you're driving around those areas, there's so many different restaurants, foods. Each city has its own character. And you can go from Algonquin Park to Port Carling and have complete ends of the spectrum, right? You can have lavish luxury, or you can go to Haliburton, you can experience that. With that said, though, one thing that I'm huge on when it comes to, say, lakefront and Grand Bend is when I get buyers that are just calling listing agents or calling agents out of different markets to sell in the area, I just caution them, you need to understand, do you own the beach that you're buying? Do you understand the lake level effect? Are you aware of the massive erosion issues that are happening? Do you understand the cycle of water levels in your area? It's even crazier because I know you're dealing with leaches. You're dealing with, do you have a decent lake? Is it sandy? Is it fishable? Like, what do you have access to? How do you guide people when it comes to waterfront property on mitigating risk or getting them the lifestyle that they want on the lake versus just a nice cottage with a nice view?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the big thing, again, as I said earlier, is I'm educate first, sell second. So when I first connect with a client, whether it's in person, over the phone, email, the big thing is, ask them, hey, what is your ideal list of things that are really important to you? And one of the large things that I'm sure you've experienced it yourself is you can always change the structure, but you cannot change the lot really. And you can to an extent, you want to start blasting and things like that, but there's a massive cost
It's a
associated with
lot.
that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some people have a lot of
So
money up there, though.
yeah, oh no, there's no shortage of that up here. But for me, it just starts off with identifying like, hey, if you are not into stairs at all, like I've sold some places that have over 120 stairs to get down to the
Yeah,
waterfront, which for me, that's not for me personally
I'm
on a
all set.
day-to-day
Thanks.
basis. Yeah, but for some people that's okay,
For
or if
sure.
they're purchasing it for an Airbnb, they're not there all the time, so it's not as much of a major consideration. But no, it just really comes down to identifying their criteria, and I let people know out of the gate that we're going to do our best to stick to this. We want to check as many boxes as we can, but depending on the property, because these are unique structures, unique lots, there may be some compromises that we have to make. And you never want to be making too many compromises, obviously, whether you're spending $100,000 or $10 million. But sometimes there's a bit of give and take on both sides. I've had some clients where we went from looking at one type of property and one style that they really liked to completely flipping it into something else. And I think they're happier now than they would have been had we got them into that product they first were looking for. So lots of things, lake quality, whether that's, the water quality, temperatures, things like depths, like in Muskoka, there's a few 3 Mile lakes, but one of them in particular, it's got an average depth of around 30 something feet. The water temperature goes well above 80.
Wow.
You have blue-green algae problems. It's not deemed safe to swim in. So there's little things that you need to look into and know the history of that lake or the history of the area. Otherwise, you could really be putting somebody in a bad spot. And, there's, I think, 3 or 4 3 Mile lakes within an hour of each other in Muskoka.
Wow.
So it can get confusing too,
For sure.
even for people like me who are doing it every day. It's lots of fact finding, and relationships really matter up here. Like, not that they don't in the city, but it's a very small pond up here. So
Sure.
having that rapport with agents, picking up the phone to actually call them versus just assuming, like,
Yep.
it goes a lot further.
Going to their open houses. Like, I mean, even people that would be deemed our biggest competitors, you can have fun in this industry and you can be competitive about stuff and you can treat people with respect, and people will run their businesses how they run it. But it goes a long way in deal flow for your clients. Like when we're looking for projects or we're looking for off-market stuff, a lot of times the agents are the ones calling us first because they know, hey, if we're doing a deal, it'll get funded. The people that we have are serious, and we'll probably do our homework before we paper the offer versus getting an offer and it's just a disaster, which I'm sure both of us have dealt with over the careers that we've had, right?
Yeah, I've been lucky. Like most of the agents up north, like I work with some really great people out of my brokerage and some other brokerages in the area. I've had a few come up from the city that they definitely I've had one guy ask me where the sewers were and
Amazing.
The water main. So that was an interesting conversation. But
here's my referral paperwork.
Yes, seriously. But no, it's just, this is a people business, and we have some great agents up here. But at the end of the day, like, you have to be collaborative to get deals done. Like, people, like, as you said, can run their businesses any way they want, but we have to work together. You have to represent your client well, fairly, and, putting your ego in the way is only just going to make the deal that much harder.
For sure. Well, you're Greek, and I mean, I'm French. So, I mean, both of us, I'm sure our egos have crept up at times, but it's just keeping in check. You seem like you have fun, though. Like, it seems like you do have a passion for what you do, and it's not just sales, right? Is that a fairly accurate statement?
I'm honestly one of the luckiest 29-year-olds in the world. I get to wake up to a beautiful view on the lake every day. I get to see really cool properties with amazing people. Working with some institutional investors now, so that's a bit of a different experience for me. But no, it's really cool working in these areas. And honestly, I had no intention to be selling cottages when I got into this business. I was planning to work, Barrie, Simcoe County, and sell traditional homes, I guess we can call them. And throughout the pandemic and a few things in life, moved up to where my parents' place is up there, and it just snowballed from there, and I couldn't be happier about it. Like, it's great place to be, great place to live, great place to work. And, it's only getting better as we see the growth in these smaller towns. And, luckily I get to introduce some really nice people to this area too.
Well, there's 3 versions of this show that we do. So if you're watching this stream, and I see a bunch of you on, there's the Estates Entrepreneurs and Expressos, which is where I come get you in a car. We drive around, you show me the area. So maybe one day I'll get my camera and I'll come up there, and I'd love to see the spots. I love photography. So you show me where I got to take the shots, and we'll do another one of these in person. If that sounds
absolutely good. I have a wicked compound for sale right now on Lake Muskoka, just shy of 7 million. So that'd be a fun one to go take a look at.
Wait, I think we're going to be up in July, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Anyways, I note that let's get in the calendar if that's the thing. I do want to, before I let you go, I do want to talk about the state of the real estate market. Interest rates have been held at a very high level. People I find in our market are ultra sharp with their price points. I'm seeing bidding wars every day. Like, I'm going to be in another one today. We had one yesterday that's been on the market for like 35 days. I got 3 offers on it. And I think the perception is, well, the market's taking a beating, but I also think that sellers are getting realistic on their price point. Our recreational markets tend to lag like 60 days behind our primary markets. And I feel like it's starting there now because the weather's turning around. Yeah. What is the current state of the real estate market up where you're at?
It's been a little bit weird this spring. Like, we're very cyclical in the sense where, holidays are the big push for sales up here. So the May 2-4 is big one. People want to get in. Canada Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, things basically start to taper off from there. Now that obviously we've had the spring melt go on, I and some colleagues that I've spoke to, we were definitely expecting to see more listings start to hit. Yeah. And they're trickling in more and more every day. But from my perspective, at least, it's definitely a lot slower than I anticipated in terms of new product coming out there. As far as the pricing goes, it's a bit of a mixed bag right now. You have some people that frankly are still dreaming, thinking they can get the peak COVID pricing, which it's unfortunate because they're just sitting on these things.
And agents are, I call it buying the listing. They're telling you what they want to hear just to see a sign up, right?
Yeah. And I get it. Like, part of the business is, you're not always going to be listing for the price that you 100% feel.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm also not here to buy listings myself. We invest time, money into media, all that type of stuff. And for me, most of these properties are 45 minutes away or slightly more or slightly less.
I feel you, brother. I feel you.
Yeah. So, I want to be as efficient as possible with people. I want to be as fair as possible. I'm not here to give away your property, but I'm not here to collect photos of it for my house either. Yeah. So, having sometimes difficult conversations where people's expectations need to be realigned. It sucks, don't get me wrong, but I would so much rather do that out of the gate. They know how they know from there that I'm a straight shooter. And if I'm wrong and we get far more or we get a lot more activity, I'm not going to be mad about that. But I don't want to set the whole relationship and the sale up for, just a difficult process out of the gate. So it's a bit of a mixed bag right now in terms of pricing on some of these properties. So you are seeing a few where they're under listing, they're getting into multiples, getting a pretty, solid result. And then we're even starting to see some distress sales. There was one, not my clients, but they paid $1.8 million for a property that, in my opinion, wasn't worth $1 million during the peak or after. And they couldn't sell it for 1.3 a year later. And that's not equity. I mean, I don't know the deal, obviously 100%, but that 500 grand is an equity. Yeah. And it still didn't sell. So it's interesting. I think people who were looking to make a flip during the COVID market, I think you could have exposed yourself to a fair amount of risk. But there's been smart buys out there on off market before the pandemic, during and after. So we're seeing things trend. Like, it's not what it was. Things are definitely trending down into, a more realistic price range. But the thing that I tell people, and I'm not trying to go on a tangent here, but I sound like a broken record saying this to clients, is, growing up $1 million, you had $1 million house. You were ahead of the curve. That was a lot of money, and it still is a lot of money, but what you get versus the spend is obviously a lot different today. So the place that I tell people, the place that was truly worth $1 million before the pandemic, it's still likely worth that today. Mm-hmm. The difference is you don't have this frenzy and the gross overspending and overbidding that has driven these properties well beyond their market value. So, a lot of places were trading for these crazy high numbers, and to some people that was the norm, but anybody who watches these statistics knows that that wasn't sustainable.
Absolutely.
So, if you draw a line from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, numbers aren't flat, but they're definitely not what they were during the peak. And that's fine. Like that wasn't sustainable. My opinion is in, 5 years or so from now, we may be begging for the prices we saw during the pandemic. And that's the unique thing about the product that we're working with. You can't just create more lakes. You can't just create more waterfront lots, or not as easily as they used to. So it's a commodity that's very limited, especially on lakes that are of good quality and desirability to people.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting insight. A lot of your sentiments we've shared with people over the years, and we've helped people get out of situations that they got into during the pandemic. But even from a business planning perspective, because a lot of entrepreneurs and creators watch this and they're looking at their numbers versus what they did in 2022. I'm like, my business planning, I went back to like 2019. I looked at 2020 to 2022, even when I was in it. And I'm like, hey, this is an anomaly, because take everything's happening in the world now, and draw a line from like, if you were in the business 2015 to now, but if you weren't, go back to those 2019 numbers. And I think you'll feel better about the progress you're making, because it's not just real estate. It's venture capital. It's automotive. It's hospitality. Everybody's down because everybody's had to tighten their belts. I actually think overall it's healthier for a society, because we were spending, like I saw people buying jet skis and landscaping packages that, like, I work pretty hard, and I'm like, are we not working hard enough? Like, people are spending money like it's going out of style. We're just a lot more conservative, so we never wanted to spend beyond our means. And I think people are finally starting to do more with less. They're getting back to work. I think there's still a long runway that we have to deal with, stateside, and up here we're dealing with two massive political campaigns that who knows where they're going to end up. But I always say we succeed in spite of our politics, not because of them. And I like seeing people that are passionate about what they do. You're definitely that guy. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Everybody, please give him a follow. Go connect with him. Where's the best place for them to find you? I should ask you that.
So I don't do TikTok, not because I don't see the value in it, but I have a million apps on my phone and I spend too much time on it anyways. But I am active on Facebook and Instagram under Stefan Kontos. So just my name that you'll see here on the posting. And then I'm dabbling more and more with Twitter, or now X. I've been actually on it for probably 10, 15 years now. But I guess ever since Elon took over, we're starting to see a lot more of these authorities pop out in different segments and people having different voices. And, honestly, I've learned so much from some amazing, American brokers and mortgage professionals. Like, there's one guy out of New York, Bob Knackle. The guy is...
Yeah, he's a buddy of mine, actually. I know Bob. That's awesome.
Bob is so impressive. If I could have a fraction of a business that he's built, his follow-up, his storytelling, just the guy incredible. He's the epitome of an amazing broker. So no, you guys can reach me out there. I'm always happy to pick up the phone and, have a candid conversation about the markets, about the product that I sell, development, and I'm not here to pressure anybody into anything.
No, that's awesome. If anybody wants to connect with him, feel free to do that. I appreciate you all being here watching the show. Make sure you hit that subscribe and notification button so you don't miss any future episodes. We drop them Thursdays at 1 p.m. They're also on YouTube if you want to see the different versions of this show. I'll get Stefan to speak at one of my masterminds sometime, or you'll see me in his area on EEE. So I appreciate you, brother. I'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.